Well, I have news for you. The day is not far from us when keeping Sunday will be scientific, right? And we will have to make a decision. Are we going to follow the science or are we going to follow the Bible? And so even though it's not my belief, wearing a yarmulke is not my belief, does that mean it's not a religious liberty issue? I don't practice animal sacrifices or wear a hijab. Does that mean those aren't religious liberty issues for other people? And so when we start to say, because the church and people start to say, well, that's not a religious liberty issue, right? When we start to say what is or isn't a religious liberty issue, are we not stepping between man and God? Who am I to tell you what a religious liberty issue is for you? Who am I to tell you that that is not what God has convicted you to do? And so when we start to say to others that this isn't a religious liberty issue, we are stepping between man and his maker. And that is wrong. There's a quote here from Ellen White. It says, "The banner of truth and religious liberty held aloft by the founders of the gospel church and by God's witnesses during the centuries that have passed since then has in this last conflict been committed to our hands." Did you guys know that the banner of religious liberty has been committed to your hands? To the hands of the Seventh-day Adventist Church? This is a banner that we are supposed to be holding. And what happens when you let a banner down? What happens when you let a banner down? Do men not retreat? Does the enemy not advance? If we let the banner of religious liberty down, the enemy will gain ground. And so we have to hold this banner aloft. We have to hold it high. When we wave it high, it encourages others. It strengthens the faith of others. Yes, we need to be holding this banner high. So another quote from Manuscript 30, 1889. It says, "Our own land is to become a battlefield on which is to be carried on the struggle for religious liberty, to worship God according to the dictates of our own conscience." Ellen White specifically tells us that this land, America, will become a battlefield of religious liberty. And if we aren't practicing that now for people who maybe they believe differently than us, if we aren't lifting up, you know what they say, a rising tide lifts all ships, right? If we aren't lifting up religious liberty in this land, then we are losing the battle. The battle is not just for Adventists. The battle is for people of all faith, regardless of their religion. The quote goes on to say, "Then can we not discern the work of the enemy in keeping men asleep who ought to be awake, whose influence shall not be neutral, but wholly and entirely on the Lord's side? Shall men cry peace and safety now when sudden destruction is coming upon the world, when God's wrath shall be poured out?" Friends, we are in a battle between good and evil. And this battle centers around religious liberty. And we know the final conflict will be regarding religious liberty. And so we must hold this banner high. And why has God committed it into our hands? I believe for a couple reasons why he's given this to Seventh-day Adventists. One is because we understand Bible prophecy. No other denomination understands Bible prophecy as does the Seventh-day Adventists. We know that this final crisis will be about the freedom that men have to worship God. We also believe that everyone should be able to worship God according to the dictates of his or her own conscience. And so, like Brother Zirkel pointed out, the Puritans, they were all about freedom for them, right? And the Church of England was all about freedom for them. And all the religious entities of the past before the United States of America was about freedom for themselves. Religious freedom was won by military conquests. And then you lorded it over your subjects so that you could keep serving your gods. But that's not how America was built. And we as Adventists believe that everyone should be freely able to worship God according to the dictates of their own conscience. Whether that means worshiping on Sunday or worshiping on the Sabbath. Whatever that means, we should not stand in the way between man and his Maker. We also know, as Adventists, that a nation flourishes when it gives religious freedom. And we know that this country will fall and go down when it takes away religious freedom. It is only by religious freedom that we have God's blessing and that we can thrive and have peace with one another. And so that is why I believe this banner was passed on to us. And I hope and pray that you all are doing all you can to raise that banner high.